else sound bad to make yourself sound better. It's not working.
What did I say to make you sound bad?
You said, Andrea, we've all done that.
Hello guys, it's Randomizer Arsenal. So over the course of a few years, many people have stated their opinions on the current state of the channel SMG4. Some are pretty good, others are subpar at best. Mostly the latter. Case in point, the YouTuber TheMetalBlade5. About 3 years ago, TheMetalBlade posted a video called Response to Modern SMG4. Now, I know that Nostalgia Egg and SW already made videos on this, but honestly, I don't care. Not that many people are talking about how awful this video truly is. Before I start, I just want to say that I don't dislike Metalblade in general. He has made some decent videos, and even though he's basically just a worse version of Benjamage, I still think some of his videos are pretty decent. This video is just about his video and not him as a whole. Anyway, let's just get on with it.
SMG4 was one of the first channels I subscribed to after making my YouTube account, and I've watched it all these years. However, that has now left me in an awkward situation in regards to my feelings towards this series. I honestly didn't even realize I felt this way myself until fairly recently, but over the past several years, I haven't been enjoying SMG4 as much as I used to. Once the idea popped into my head, I had somewhat of an epiphany, where thinking back on my impressions of many of the newer episodes, I realized this to be true. Even looking at my liked videos playlist further backs this train of thought, as the frequency and gaps between SMG4 videos is far greater compared to the past, where almost every episode ended up on there. And that's not even taking into account the upload dates between them, which would show an even greater distance. And as a result of all this thinking back, I came to realize why I haven't been enjoying the newer episodes. And all those issues have become more noticeable to me in the episodes following my epiphany, and bother me so much to the point that I wanted to make a response.
Okay, honestly, this would have been a pretty good way to start the video if the clip I'm showing was the full intro. The clip I showed is barely half of the intro. Most of the intro is him talking about his attachment with the series and him talking about what SMG4 is about. Now, I'm not saying that making long intros is bad because frankly, I would be a hypocrite. That's a fucking stupid thing to say. But making half of the intro just you explaining something for a minute and a half is not great. That is basically what Metalblade is doing. Anyway, on to his next point.
For starters, the most general and fundamental issue I have with the modern episodes is that the humor has simply declined, where nowadays they are mostly boring and unfunny compared to the quality of the past. It's like modern Simpsons, where it's a hollow shell of its former self. We're even at the point where they're copying older episodes, but making them worse.
Okay, this might be the first part of the video where I start questioning if he even watched the full series. He claims that many of the newer episodes copy the older ones, which is kinda true. Don't quote me on that. But the problem is that he says this right after praising the 2015 randomness era.
Then I'd say around 2014 to early 2017 was peak SMG4 for me.
He says this right after saying the newer episodes copy the older ones, even though the era he's praising has a bunch, if not more, copied episode ideas from the classic era. Here are some examples. I could list off more examples, but you get my point. I really don't like using this word because it's so overused, but Metalblade enjoys cherry-picking what can qualify his points as valid, even if they aren't valid, and we will certainly see more of that as the video continues. Anyway, on to the next point.
Another major issue I have with the modern content, and this is something I've always felt at the back of my mind, but only properly recognized after my epiphany, is the characters. Specifically, over the past couple of years, they have introduced tons of original characters who become part of the main cast, and this has only become more frequent as time's gone on. Not only does the existence of original characters go against part of the hilarity of SMG4, being how he takes these pre-existing characters and makes ridiculous parodies out of them, but most of the original characters are, in my opinion, boring, unfunny, incredibly forced in, and take away from the enjoyment of the series.
Okay, first off, I would like to point out how manipulative this is. He showcases a clip from an SMG4 video which looks boring and cringy to point out that the new characters are boring and cringy, and doesn't even give any context towards that video. The reason why that clip looks boring is because the whole point was that Mario was trying to cope with his friends not being there. But if you thought that was the main point I have on this video, don't worry because it gets worse. You see, MetalBlade says that original characters go against SMG4, but that's just blatantly incorrect. Characters like SMG4 and the rest of the Mario reclers are basically just original characters. Now, you might say that they aren't original because they are reclers of Mario, but I have my reasonings. First off, many of the characters that are considered original, like Fishy Boopkins, are also technically different versions of Nintendo IP, so that point doesn't make any sense. And secondly, and most importantly, the Mario reclers aren't parodies. They are literally just other Mario 64 Machinima YouTubers in the SMG4 universe. Again, MetalBlade's arguments are just not very good here. Okay, so I'm going to skip his segment on Fishy Boopkins and Bob, not because it's good, but mainly because it's just really boring, and that's all I have to say about it. It's boring, but that's all I can say, honestly. So I'm just gonna skip to his point after that.
Let's start with the most notable of all, who I consider the catalyst for the issues I'm going to have with the series. Meggy. I've always found her to be such a boring and unfunny character. Even back when she was an Inkling, she wasn't even a parody, since she has the exact same personality as any other Inkling, just with more dialogue. So it always bugged me to see her get constantly pushed to the forefront and made one of the main characters, in which she then became the Min of YouTube. The girl who everyone loves, despite not doing anything to warrant such popularity.
This point is not as bad as his other points on Meggy, but it's still really tone deaf. First off, saying that Meggy isn't a parody is true, but it's completely hypocritical considering that, again, characters like the Mario reclers aren't parodies either. Secondly, am I the only one who thinks it's kinda crazy to say that the video is your opinion, but then see your opinion in the most objective way possible? He's saying that Meggy does nothing to warrant being popular, even though that is completely subjective. Like, if you're gonna state your opinion, don't fucking say shit like this or else you're gonna sound fucking stupid. His next point is genuinely laughable.
They absolutely refuse to do anything funny with her, being that she lacks a stupid, ridiculous, or flawed personality and is never involved in anything like slapstick, for example. She just flexes on everyone with her athletic and shooter skills and her lame tomboy attitude.
The first time I heard this, I thought, did this dude even watch the episodes she's in? First off, that's just not true. There have been many instances where Meggy was literally all of the things he said she wasn't. Here are some examples.
Hey Wario, do you like my new shirt I bought from Target? Damn, this is a sexy shirt. Look at the big juicy target on this. It's like I'm asking to get shot. Oh man, it would be horrible if something bad were to happen to this t-shirt. How my ovaries?
That certainly doesn't seem like a character who is missing flaws. And I know that 2023 Onward Meggy does seem more perfect, but MetalBlade's video came out in like 2021, so I can still use this argument. Now, I was going to use characters like Ray to prove that Meggy is a perfect character, but thankfully SMG4 has one itself, Starman 3, which is kinda ironic considering what he did, but we'll get into that later on. The reason so many people hate Starman 3's character is because unlike Meggy, he has zero flaws. His entire character is being smarter than everybody else. I get that real life Starman forced Luke to make him that way, but that just makes it worse. Saying Meggy is a perfect character, especially in contrast with Starman 3, is a very stupid point.
I don't think I've enjoyed any Meggy-focused episode because she's such a boring character that it makes me feel bored and left with a painfully neutral impression. Yet she still gets the center of attention, with Luke and Kevin practically simping over her. They even gave her a fucking movie before anyone else!
I was originally going to talk about the Hobo Bros video in his segment on how Meggy is objectively bad, but here we are now. Instead of explaining why the Bros aren't simping over Meggy, I'm going to show a clip from that exact video and then say what I think, so here it is.
Alright, before we continue, I want to address something. I want to address the impact that this video has had on not just our channel, like not in terms of the direction our channel has gone, but on Luke's life.
Yeah.
Like this video has actually impacted Luke's entire life and who he is today.
Well, the reason for that is, around this time I was in university or college, we're doing an animation course.
Film course.
It was but one of them was an animation class.
Okay.
And I applied it. So, and I learned some stuff from that class, and I saw, just as you saw Kali Mui, I animated some of the characters. And I was like, Kevin, this is actually pretty fun.
And we were like, and as he was making it, I could actually tell that you were really good at animating, or you had a knack for it, right? Mm-hmm. And then it was because of this episode, Meggy was our first animated character for one.
Yeah.
Our first properly animated character, and you got to see more and more. We did that because Luke just liked animating. Like Meggy's animated just because Luke likes animating, not because it was a style or anything like that. Luke just really enjoyed animating, and that really, really built Luke's passion for animation. And it got to the point where he dropped out of school, he dropped out of uni, because he was doing a film degree, right? He dropped out of uni, and then he went to an art college to pursue animation in 3D. And that literally was, I think that was literally the seedling for starting Metarun and starting an animation company.
Yep. So
there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of history to this episode.
This girl right here is a symbol of freedom, as she first said.
Wow.
Not freedom.
That's really poetic.
Yes.
Creativity, discovery.
Yes.
Discover. It's
Wow.
on the shirt. That we're not wearing right now.
Oh yeah.
Put it up.
Put it up. Wow. You see that? Discover. Yeah.
Don't treat her like that. But anyway, I thought you guys should know that. That's a little bit of history. I don't think we've ever told anybody before.
No.
But yeah, it's really cool. We got it all from this guy shitting his pants.
As you can see from the clip, Meggy was the reason Luke pursued his passion for animation and why he started a business. None of this is either him or Kevin simping over her. Well, that's okay. Maybe MetalBlade would acknowledge Meggy's importance to SMG4. He doesn't acknowledge Meggy's importance to SMG4.
You can't keep getting away with it!
It's almost like he's trying to miss information to prove a point. But if you thought that was bad, it somehow gets worse.
For a long time, I'd say that I had an agonizingly average opinion of her. But nowadays, I fucking hate Meggy due to certain behind-the-scenes factors.
She's a bitch!
So now, I skip over any episode that has Meggy in the thumbnail.
For one moment, I was like, alright, explain what she did wrong. But he doesn't say it. He just says she did something bad and moved on with the video. So instead, I had to Google what she did wrong and found this video by the creator Jack Q. Apparently, the message that MetalBlade shows on screen without giving any context with response to a voice actor saying that it was bad that industries shame minorities. Now, I don't know if I'm missing something, but to me, this message is harmful to literally no one. So I don't know why you would make such a big fuss about it. But that's not the main reason. Apparently, MetalBlade thinks Lizzie is racist because she said this on her Twitter account. Listen, I'm not saying that it's an awesome thing she did. Nobody really gives a fuck about white people voicing people of color. But how is this racist? Like, if someone could please explain to me what is racist about this, I would love that. If I'm correct that there's nothing racist about it, MetalBlade is technically just spreading false allegations, which is genuinely disgusting. There's nothing good about this at all. Now, the same thing I said about Bob and Boopkins applies to his segment on Psycho. It's just boring, but I really don't have anything else to say about it. I expected the same for his segment on Tari, but oh boy, I have stuff to talk about that.
And for the last of the boring OG girl trio, there's Tari. For starters, Her entire existence is just one big advertisement for MetaRunner. Then there's the person underneath the advert. When she first appeared, I thought I might like her because she's a gamer. But nope! She's literally just two unfunny jokes that get constantly repeated for her whole screen time. Either she's too shy to do anything and says, "Oh no!" or she's distracted by rubber ducks. That's it. While you could argue that they repeat jokes of other characters, like Mario loving spaghetti and getting naked, they do different things with it and put a spin on it to keep the joke funny and entertaining. Plus, those obviously aren't the only jokes those characters make, and they're funny in the first place. Unlike Tari, where they don't do anything unique with her jokes.
For the longest time, I've grown a hate towards the point that Tari is promotion for MetaRunner, and I would like to explain why that is complete bullshit. First off, it's confirmed by Luke himself that Tari was created as a character for SMG4. Saying that she's promotion for MetaRunner implies that Tari was made for MetaRunner, even though Luke asked his cousin to design a character made for SMG4. Here's a clip of that.
Begin with how exactly Tari was born.
Our little sister, who was like 12 years old at the time, was doodling in her book. We asked her, like, you have any ideas for like new characters for SMG4?
Yeah, because at the time we wanted to introduce new characters, right?
And so she drew like a gamer girl. She dubbed her name Tari.
Yep, so this was our little sister, just her doodles of just coming up with this character.
My second and more important reason has to do with Glitch's other show, Murder Drones. Now answer me this, if Tari being a main character in SMG4 is just promotion for MetaRunner, why aren't any of the characters from Murder Drones main characters in SMG4? And before you say that Metal Blade did not know about Murder Drones, not only does that prove my point about Metal Blade not knowing information, but that's also wrong because in the first 10 seconds of the video, he shows a meme clip from a video that literally announced Murder Drones. Honestly, it doesn't surprise me that Metal Blade didn't say this. It's all coming together. Next, he has a small segment on the side characters, and honestly, to give credit where credit is due, this segment is pretty good, even if it's extremely short. That's all I have to say, really, so let's move on.
You know, it is possible that I could have tolerated the original characters if they didn't replace the characters that are actually funny. You know what I said before about how I didn't like characters like X, FM, and the other alternate colored Mario YouTubers being effectively removed? Modern SMG4 is like that on steroids. So many of the funny characters who helped make the series what it was, and even some who have been around since the beginning, have been severely pushed to the side and almost flat out removed to make room for the shitty new ones. Toad, who is basically the show's Squidward, hardly ever appears nowadays, and when he does, he's given a very minor role. Bowser and Peach don't really appear that much now, aside from the occasional episode. The Teletubbies are effectively gone, as their only modern appearances has been as background NPCs who don't do anything, rather than their previous sociopathic violent acts. Even Luigi and SMG4 himself feel like they are being pushed to the side, as the originals are slowly starting to make more frequent appearances than them. Hell, even Mario, the main character, appears to have been sidelined, as there are multiple very recent episodes where he has less than a minute of screen time. It almost seems like Luke and Kevin want SMG4 to be a fully original series rather than a spoof, but for now just throws Mario in at the last minute so they can keep the name. And if they do end up doing that, then it will be the complete death of the series for me.
Okay, I completely understand the frustration with characters like Bowser not appearing as often. That is honestly something that I wish wouldn't have happened. But then when you say that, and then say that characters like Mario and SMG4 aren't important anymore, you're either just dumb or you don't watch the newer videos. Like, he's saying that they don't play a role, even though during 2021 when Metal Blade made this video, they were literally the most important and popular characters than literally anybody else. This segment would have been good if it wasn't for that aspect. Now, I'm going to skip to his segment on the anime arc. He has nothing interesting to know in his segments on the Waluigi and Bob arcs, so I'll just skip to his segment on the anime arc real quick.
Then we reach the most infamous arc amongst many fans, the anime arc. At the time the episodes were coming out, I didn't really think much of them. I thought, okay, we're doing this now, and went along with it. But in hindsight, my opinion of it has certainly gone down. The premise of it leading into anime characters trying to take over sounded like it had the potential to be funny, but they made it way too serious, with many of the jokes falling flat partially because of the tone they set.
Okay, let me show you a simplified version of this segment that MetalBlade has. SMG4 cannot be serious, SMG4 can't be serious, SMG4 can't be serious. There's my simplified version of this segment. Even in this segment, he literally says that it can't be serious because it's about anime characters fighting the cast. That is not what the arc is about. Does MetalBlade ever mention this? No, he doesn't. But somehow, this isn't his worst segment on the anime arc. It gets so much worse.
Then they made it even more overly serious when they did this. They killed off a character. This pushed the seriousness way too far, as it was so out of place for this kind of show, and still is despite making other serious videos later. What made this worse was the really bad writing around this plot point. In addition to fucking up the mood by quickly going back to jokes like Shaggy versus Goku, and now it's sad again, was the exact handling of Desti's death, which were things I even thought of at the time. For one, Desti was never an important character, as she was only in one episode prior to this arc. Yet they treat it as if she was, by making out that this is some massively devastating loss and that we'll never see her again. Second is that in her one prior episode, and even during this arc, Meggy and Desti hated each other's guts. But now they suddenly act as if they were best friends, with Meggy becoming a sobbing, traumatized mess from her death. What? Their rivalry did become more friendly in the episode before Desti's death, so I could see Meggy developing a bit of a mutual respect for her and being a bit sad by that, but not like, I don't know how it can go on. It's simply bad writing to make it more emotional when it shouldn't be this kind of emotional to begin with.
First off, I hate how he complains about there being jokes in the episode, apparently because it doesn't fit well with the seriousness. Not only is that a stupid argument in itself, but it's also a stupid argument in the context of the anime arc. This is still an SMG4 video at the end of the day. It's not like they made it like the most serious thing to ever be known to man. Even then, the jokes complement the story and the situation they are in, but according to MetalBlade, you cannot have any jokes in a serious episode at all. His arguments on Desti's death are somehow even more stupid. First off, he acts like Desti never served an important role, and though yes, that is true for the episodes before the arc, he greatly underestimates her character during the arc. Also, I'm sorry, but the point that Meggy should not be this sad from her death is really fucking bad. First off, MetalBlade already sabotaged the argument by saying that the relationship became friendly, so there's that. Second, the main reason Meggy was traumatized was because she thought that her actions caused the death of someone else. It's actually a pretty common thing in writing. It's called survivor's guilt. You might have heard of it. Here are some characters that also have survivor's guilt. And before you say Meggy does not have survivor's guilt, there's a line that literally proves that she does. MetalBlade is basically just writing off this very common theme in writing to prove a baseless argument that the anime arc is badly written.
So with the existence of Glitch Productions, the entire channel now feels super corporate rather than being made for fun. Almost every single video that is uploaded now starts off of Luke and Kevin promoting something they've made. Yes, I know about MetaRunner. You don't have to remind me every single time. And these promotional segments, especially the MetaRunner ones, where it's simply the next episode is out, go on for way too long, which takes up a noticeable portion of the video and makes you think the episode is longer than it actually is. If I was in this position, I would just make the advert a several second long tease like what movie trailers do on YouTube, not make an E3 presentation out of it. Even the channel banner is an advert for MetaRunner, despite it now being uploaded on a separate channel. You know, for anyone who isn't a fan of MetaRunner, I'd imagine all these adverts would get very annoying. Oh wait, I don't have to imagine, 'cause I'm one of them. This also goes back to all the stuff about the original characters getting far more screen time. Since they are fully original and not based on copyrighted characters, they can make merchandise off of them like plushies and figures to also advertise on top of other things they promote like t-shirts. They even made this one video on Hobo Bros titled An Important Message with a serious looking thumbnail that makes it look like they've been cancelled or something. Even though all the video is about is them saying they're taking a break. And what's the first thing you see when you click on it? Buy the new Meta Runner backpack! They literally clickbait you into an advert. This corporate nature may also be affecting the episodes themselves on occasion, as I'll now go over the only If Mario Was In episode I straight up dislike, despite me really enjoying most of those videos. If Mario Was In Meta Runner. The video's entire existence is just to be a promotion for Meta Runner Season 2. The events of the video are just an abridged recap of Season 1 filled with mostly unfunny jokes when the whole charm of the If Mario Was In series is to have Mario fuck everything up and parody the media he's been thrown into, and I had to listen to Meggy's shitty voice. And on the subject of Meggy's voice, the whole reason why they gave her a human form and hired a stuck-up actress to play her is so she can have her own series on Glitch Productions. Safe to say, I'm not touching that with a 10-mile pole when it's released.
First off, MetalBlade acts like they should not advertise at all. I get his point that the ads are too long, but with the way he says it, it makes it sound like it's a bad thing that Luke and Kevin advertise at all, and I even need to explain why that's stupid. But here's the thing, I looked through a bunch of the videos from 2019 to early 21 and saw that the longer advertisements barely appear as much as the ones of the shorter ads. You know, the ones that MetalBlade says don't exist. But yeah, I can kinda see how MetalBlade thinks Luke and Kevin are greedy. Also, the thing about Sunset Paradise, I genuinely have no idea how a show about Meggy means Meggy getting a voice was only for that show. Listen, I don't like Sunset Paradise either, but that is not how any of that works. Also, another awful comment on Meggy's voice. How amusing. Anyway, we're close to the end of this.
Now, the final thing I want to talk about in this video is Luke and Kevin's treatment of the older episodes. Going back round to the humor being worse, a lot of the dark comedy found in the previous eras is all but gone now, such as the whole Luigi being gay thing not existing anymore, and now he's just wimpy like his game counterparts. In addition to how this further correlates to many of the modern videos being uninteresting as they replace them with these very safe jokes that are, once again, unfunny most of the time, on Hobo Bros, they've done a couple of reaction videos to the older episodes where they repeatedly say, "We'd never be able to get away with that now." Well, more accurately, it's what Kevin claims.
Dude, we could never do anything like that in 2020, man.
Sounds a little fatalistic to me, but I guess that is partially to do with YouTube's bullshit demonetization rules, where it's like, you swore once, so you're not allowed to make any money. However, I don't bother to follow those rules because I think they're a load of shit. So I don't see why SMG4 should do it too, when part of what I enjoyed about it at first was how rebellious it felt with its sense of humor. Unless they do really want money despite all the merchandise. Even then, I don't think that's a good excuse to completely change the way jokes are delivered, as, for example, swear words on their own are not funny. It's how they're used that can make them funny. So I don't see why they can't keep the same level of punch to the punchlines like they did in the past, just without the swearing.
If this was made before the 2020 era, I could possibly understand it, but considering this was made during 2021, ooh boy. First off, it's not like the jokes were just swearing. There are so many rape jokes that absolutely wouldn't fly today. And it's not like they would just lose money and that's it. Stuff like that has literally terminated people from the internet. Even then, they still have adult humor. Luigi being gay still exists. The swearing still exists. Like, not only is a point stupid, but there are so many assumptions here. Now, I'm about to talk about this last segment in the video, but I have to say this before that. This segment will have the following things on screen, and I just want to say, if you feel uncomfortable with any of the things, skip to the time on screen. Anyway, let's get on to the worst thing I've ever seen from something related to SMG4. If you thought it was bad before, just watch this.
Furthermore, through those reaction videos, I get the impression that they see the older videos as something to be mocked rather than honored, much less as a point of reference for how they can improve. One episode they reacted to was 0% of Spaghetti, which was from the very early era of episodes. The entire reaction is Kevin taking the piss out of the editing, completely ignoring that it is a very old video. And at the end of it all, Luke sounded so defeated and ashamed of what he had made.
Well, the editing was awful, the humor was something, and...
That's something else I want to touch on. With everything I've covered about the direction the new episodes have gone in, it's always been Kevin saying these things, not Luke. Now, this is in no way intended to be a hit piece against Kevin, but I can't help but feel he may be at least somewhat responsible for what has happened to the channel. I know Kevin started writing for the series around 2016 and gradually became more involved over time, which sort of correlates with when I felt the quality started to decline. Additionally, on Hobo Bros and a lot of the channel updates, Kevin is basically doing all of the talking and presenting and is at the forefront, while Luke is more in the background, hardly speaking. There's also the time with the Big Chungus episode, where Luke initially didn't want to make it because the meme was dead at that point, but Kevin persuaded him into doing it anyway. All this stuff makes it feel like this is Kevin's channel now, rather than Luke's, which makes me concerned that Kevin may have taken up a bit of a dictatorial role, with Luke being stuck as his yes man. Which is especially problematic when you realize that Kevin hasn't seen any of the episodes released prior to him joining on. All those reaction videos? That's him seeing these episodes for the very first time. So if what I'm theorizing is even remotely true, it would appear that Kevin is enforcing his own vision of the show without taking into account what came before and made people like the channel in the first place.
In this segment, MetalBlade states that Kevin is forcing his views on Luke, basically saying that Kevin is doing coercion on Luke. When I say this is bad, I mean this is fucking insane. His only evidence are reaction videos, and even then, it's always Luke being more negative. Kevin has always been supportive in those videos, no matter what.
Well, that was amazing, Luke. Thank you very much for sharing that beautiful gem with us.
That hurt my head. Let's never do that again.
Why? This is a famous video.
Yeah, it sure is, Kevin. And I never...
What do you think of it?
It was a product of its time in many ways.
It was very
a product of its time.
Yeah. That's one way to put it. Looking back, what do you think of your skills?
The humor, well, the editing was awful. The humor was something, and
that Michael Bay show was pretty cool.
Thank you. See, I think all my ideas were like sprouting, and they weren't mature yet. And that's why they're all shit.
Is it mature now?
Maybe just a little bit.
Alright.
Also, I'd just like to say, while MetalBlade says that Kevin is forcing Luke into the newer episodes, he should, and I say should, have brought up the much more important issue that Starman 3, one of the classic era veterans, was actually manipulating and abusing Luke into making the videos that the classic era fans enjoy. He also manipulated children into sexting, by the way. Here are the screenshots so y'all don't think I'm a liar. If you want more information, just watch this video. MetalBlade should have definitely known these allegations, but he ignores them, takes the information, and says that Kevin, the supportive brother who helped Luke express himself on the internet, is the one manipulating everything. Let me make this clear. This is not okay. It is inexcusable to blame a relatively good party in this situation for manipulating others. This is genuinely awful and disgusting behavior from MetalBlade, and I hope he sees this and improves on it. MetalBlade, if you're seeing this, I commend you delete that part in the video and apologize for even thinking about saying that. Now that's the end of his video. I would like to mention that this video affected all SMG4 critics, mainly because this video caused the SMG4 team to not listen to the critics, which is honestly sad because there are so many critics in the community that are really solid. Some are some of my favorite SMG4 channels. Overall, MetalBlade's video sucks. Huge shout out to Nostalgia Egg for bringing me closer to the situation. Check out his video on MetalBlade. And that's everything I have to talk about. Stay happy and healthy, and see y'all next time. Bye!